I mean, there just aren't any 28-year-olds out there these days who are gonna write about hot wiring an Impala with a stiletto. They just, you know. Better than food, man. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing very well. I have like the undiscovered cult classic gem of the century to talk about with you today. So let's get right into it. Today I'm reviewing Richard Fariña's Been Down So Long, It Looks Like Up to Me. Get that coffee. Delicious. This is from Velo Coffee Roasters in Chattanooga. This is a shirt of theirs. I think it's fantastic. Not sponsored by them, just giving them a friendly shout out. This one is for Sanyam Aurora. Thank you so much, man. He's a friend and patron of the show. He tracked this down for me over in India and sent this over. He's a very kind chap. So thank you very much, man. This is a long time coming. Geez, oh Friday, as my dad used to say. Where to start with this one? My God. Read some pretty good ones this year. Haven't been so excited about a book like this for a while. This is the book that, I mean, it's better than On the Road, but it's like the same milieu. But nobody's fucking read it. Totally ahead of its time, and yet also a great snapshot of the era, which, you know, I didn't live through, but it seems more authentic than most things that I've read. The year it takes place in would be 1958. But first thing I want to know is, where the hell is anything on this guy, Richard Fariña? Who the hell are the tastemakers who suppressed this novel? You know, after reading so many books, you start to see patterns emerge, and while some are certainly better than others, a lot of them begin to take on kind of a similar tone. You're like, okay, well, I've been through this. Same shit, different author, basically. Little is radically new or different, and very few, I think, actually make me laugh out loud. And usually when they do, they become favorites of mine. This one, I don't know what the intent was, really. It seems like kind of like a frenetic wanting to get it all done. There's a real urgency to it. So much that, you know, when he was writing this near the end, his fucking hand was paralyzed, went dead on him, and he couldn't use it for a while. You really get that kind of urgency from reading the book. And my God, there's just it's just uncanny how he left, you know, shuffled off the mortal coil not long at all after this was published, by like 2 days. So, you know, it's almost as if he sensed something. This is an acid trip Bildungsroman, you know, coming of age story written by the legendary friend of Thomas Pynchon. Gravity's Rainbow is dedicated to him. He influenced Hunter S. Thompson, a fellow for whatever reason I'd wager that few of us under the age of 35 or 40 have heard of, for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. I'm talking about Richard Fariña. Richard Fariña was an American author with a Cuban father and an Irish mother. He told all sorts of wild stories about his life, about being involved in the revolution in Cuba and knowing Hemingway and then going to Ireland and joining the IRA. These were not true. You know, he went to Cornell for a scholarship in engineering, and then I think he dropped out of that to study literature, and was a big fan of Nabokov. And Lolita had come out around that time, you know, and that was making waves. Because he went to Cornell, that's where he met Pynchon. And then I think they separately found their way to California and subsequently partook in all the stuff that was happening out there. I'm linking Pynchon's introduction to the book in the description below. It's among the best that I've read. And it's really a situation for me personally. I don't know how you'll feel, but for me, it struck me. It's one of those moments where you really start to, you feel a sad kind of mournful nostalgia for a relatable character that you never knew. You've only seen their reported essence in pieces of other people or artists. He seemed to be one of those guys. Very charismatic, ultra ambitious, packed so much fucking life into 29 years that it's astounding. This dude could weave a yarn, and yeah, there's like all sorts of stories about him, true or not. This is a pretty damn genius book. I mean, there are so many people today who are trying to do this sort of thing badly. It was the only one he ever wrote, decades ahead of his time. Now, first things first, I'm sorry, because this book is out of print. It's very, very difficult to find, but I had to tell you about it. You can get some copies on Abe Books and eBay, it looks like, for reasonable-ish, and, you know, on Amazon for less reasonable-ish, although, of course, if you want to support the show, you can use the link below, and the show gets a kickback from that, and I really appreciate it. No pressure. Amazon's a little tough with this one, but depending on which country you're in, you might snag a deal, like Sanyam. And maybe there's a way we can collectively get Penguin to do another run of it. And if they don't, then I want to find Fariña's family, and I want to call them up personally and say, hey, y'all got the rights to that book, don't ya? because it more than deserves it. I think it might be critical, especially for this new generation who are deprived and locked away in solitude. They have a lot of life to experience, and it's just kind of like, I don't think people realize just how much you can pack into a life in your 20s, how much you can actually do and get away with and still like survive and then like have material to write about afterwards. I mean, there just aren't any 28-year-olds out there these days who are gonna write about hot wiring an Impala with a stiletto. They just, you know, I certainly didn't know such a thing was possible. All of us waste all of our lives. I think that is probably the biggest takeaway from this book. We are wasting our fucking lives, man. All of us. Me, you, everybody. Good God, like what you can actually do and then write about. It's unbelievable, right? But it's true, it's the truth. And this gives you a taste of what's possible. It's sort of a coming of age, you know, I mean, it's a nod to the Odyssey, it's a journey, it's a quest, a travel book, coming of age story. It also has a little bit of Bolaño, has a little bit of Aira. Of course, Fariña came before both of them. It's kind of written in something like cool cat hipster lingo. You know, it's like the late 50s, so it's like, you know, goofy names and slang, a lot of dialogue, shitloads of drugs. But some of it is just so clever. Really, you do laugh out loud, and it's great. It's just hysterical, some of this stuff. Immediately, it's apparent that he and Pynchon were contemporaries. Pynchon employs tons of the same kind of, you know, goofball linguistic tropes. I've read a little bit of The Crying of Lot 49, and there are definitely similarities, although, you know, I didn't finish it, but I prefer Fariña's book. And Gravity's Rainbow, of course, took notes from Fariña, I'd wager. Though Gravity's Rainbow, of course, is kind of just, that's really the epic of the latter half of the 20th century. It's like the American Ulysses, if you want to call it that. This one is like the Odyssey meets maybe like With Nil and I, maybe meets The Big Lebowski in and around a college campus modeled after Cornell. He wrote it while he was a student there. But also in Cuba during the Revolution, in 1958, I believe. As Pynchon says in the introduction, you know, it's not the typical college novel. Rather, you know, the campus functions as sort of a microcosm of the world at large, as he puts it. It's been called a quest, and Richard Fariña's nickname was Homer. Like Pynchon says in the introduction, 1958, to be sure, was another planet. You have to appreciate the extent of sexual repression on that campus at the time. Rock and roll had been with us for a few years, but the formulation dope/sex/rock and roll hadn't yet been made by too many of us. At Cornell, all undergraduate women were supposed to be residing, part of the time, under lock and key, either in dormitories or sorority houses. On weeknights, they had to be inside these places by something like 11 p.m., at which time all the doors were locked. Staying out all night without authorization meant discipline by the Women's Judiciary Board, up to and including expulsion from school. On Saturday nights, the curfew was graciously extended to something equally unreal, like 12 midnight. Yeah, so, you want to talk about like real sexual repression. So our main character, Gnosis Papadopoulos, is a Greek, sometime student who's in and out of college during a period of unrest from the students because of the males being unable to have females in their dorms. And in the end, you know, the climax of the book, you know, this turns into an enormous protest with thousands of students. Papadopoulos, or Pops, I think it looks like Paps, but I think it's Pops is how you pronounce it, is going through the process of self-discovery and trying to figure out what to do, essentially, knowing what is outside the academy, kind of traveling around and getting into trouble, sailing the asphalt seas, as he puts it. He's a total idiosyncratic oddball, you know, he carries around feta cheese and dolma leaves and silver dollars, which he pays for everything in, knows many people in many different places, frequently gets into trouble, and is given to bouts of hard partying involving all kinds of substances. Gnosis's quest is to find the meaning behind the easy illusions, writes Douglas Cook in a great analysis of the book that I've linked to below. Probably the best one that I found, actually, online. It looks like it was from 2001, I think, so quite a long time ago. If you're enjoying this review, if you could hit the thumbs up and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It helps get this review to people who would enjoy this book, so thank you. Also, I'm selling these bookmarks, just my face with a little reminder there. They are $4 each plus shipping. If you want to hit me up using the email below or DM me on Instagram, I could send you a quote, and I really appreciate it. I'm happy to sign them too. Thank you so much. So much of the book is filled with partying, banter, political upheaval, academics, sex, great jokes, drugs, noise, basically, and odd stories. What's very compelling to me, though, is, you know, for all the kind of silliness of sort of like a college coming-of-age novel that the book has, there are these moments, these darker tones in the book that actually work. There's this kind of demon that's chasing after Fariña in the form of a monkey that he has visions over. A monkey that emerges from a cave and is trying to kill him and Kristen, the girl he's in love with. And he has visions of it, and occasionally it will kind of rear its head, it seems. Makes positively zero sense. Seems open for interpretation. Ridiculous? Absolutely. Frightening? Actually, amazingly, yes. His ability to twist the dial from comedy to horror show is actually kind of astounding. Is it a mess? Definitely, 100%. Absolute mess. Total mess. But my God, is there some funny stuff in there. If you don't enjoy the oddball comedy of Thomas Pynchon or the kind of speed of On the Road or Hunter S. Thompson, I would just stay away from this. However, if you enjoy those, it's a masterpiece. I mean, demented, totally off-kilter, fucked up humor, which you'd never get just from looking at him, playing harmonica and singing folk songs, link below. Never in 1,000 years. The guy was punk rock through and through. It's so funny, but it's also smart. It's so clever. It's like really smart. I mean, yeah, you get the feeling like, yeah, he's young, right? So it's got like the kind of archetypal, like, oh, he's a student and he's trying to get laid and there's like, all this political stuff going on. It's really outrageous and everybody behaves in an exaggerated fashion, right? But there are lines in there, man, that are just wise beyond the years of the person who is writing them. I mean, really. Lines that people in their 20s today, no way, could never write. No way. He's wise beyond his years by a decade, if not more. One of Fariña's influences, who I discovered, which wasn't immediately apparent but should have been, was Vladimir Nabokov, who taught at Cornell in the late 50s at the time when Pynchon and Fariña were students. Now, what I learned from the sources below was that the Cornell School, this group of authors who emerged from that place and time, had common themes, one of which was political paranoia, which unquestionably is the hallmark of Pynchon's fiction. It's present in Fariña as well, definitely. The kind of Orwellian totalitarian thing, yeah. They were products of their time in that respect. And it's like my wife said, you look at all these figures in the 60s, all this happy-go-lucky, folksy shit, and you realize there was so much darkness behind that, in those personalities and behind those closed doors. Man, you can't even imagine. It's so interesting. And you really feel that when you're reading this one. It's authentic. You get an actual snapshot of what, it's fiction, it's exaggerated, it's poetic, and it's surreal and hallucinogenic, blah, blah, blah. But you actually get the feeling, the tone, right? Which feels like real of what was going on at that time. And how people really were. And it's funny, and it's raw, and it's dark. It's ambiguous, too. It's also not clear-cut whatsoever. Gnosis is not necessarily a great guy. What's happening around them is confusing, and strange, and bizarre, and manipulative. The work itself is sort of almost like a transition to the disillusionment of the 1970s, which you can see in the cinema from the 70s. Taxi Driver, Apocalypse Now, the Vietnam War, all this stuff. And Fariña was no exception. He seemed in some ways like he almost wanted to die. Or at least, push the boundaries, test his fate. One of the greatest lines of the book, one of my favorite lines of the book personally, another Odyssean reference, page 293. Oh, Thanatos, baby, kiss my wicked tongue. It's great. Great line. Thanatos in Greek mythology was like the deified embodiment of death. The novel moves with the same speed as On the Road or Fear and Loathing. The comedic timing in some places is impeccable. Fariña is a natural storyteller. He also has a terrific vocabulary. It all comes across smoother than Hennessy. That's Pops' whole shtick. He's trying to be so cool and smooth and seductive to these women, but he's also he really just doesn't have his shit together. And it's so obvious. But he's trying. He's making a colossal effort. Fariña has actually told and refined the stories that he tells in this book. There are stories within the stories. One about a fight with a wolf in the woods is particularly good, and Pynchon recalls that it was actually used back in the day to hustle co-eds, and it actually worked. As it was said in Richard Linklater's Slacker, Fariña was a guy who could think and fuck. Not only that, motherfucker could play the shit out of a harmonica and sing. Not well, according to Carolyn Hester, who was his famous folk musician first wife, who was touted by Dave Von Ronk. But then again, Fariña ditched her for Mimi Fariña, so there you go. But ladies, my advice for what it's worth, which is not much, but maybe a little, go out there and get yourself a man who looks at you the way Richard Fariña looks at Mimi Fariña in the clip below where they're playing together. Hell, the kid is so in love, he can barely take his eyes off her the whole time. Gnosis is an alter ego. You know, it seems that he is Fariña. He's parts of him. But Gnosis is also a vengeful bastard, right? He's an exaggerated form, for sure. Not an exact replica of Fariña. If I'm to trust, I mean, who the hell knows? I don't know. I didn't know any of these people, but you know. But he did not seem like an exact replica of Fariña, who seemed mild-mannered and, if driven by vengeance, was only able to express it inside of his fiction. But I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of who knows. I mean, who the hell writes like this, right? He felt a breed of sugary nausea enveloping his sensibilities, nearly as if he'd eaten a porridge of sweetmeats and custard while looking at French postcards. What? A porridge of sweetmeats and custards while looking at French postcards? I thought that was really funny. My heyday never truly known, stolen away when my tom-tit back was turned, stuffed in a cheesecloth sack, weighted with lead mortality sinkers, sunk in the fetid Gowanus Canal. Offspring the only chance, little Nasi, but without love, the membrane holds. How long? Unborn children congealing, opiated brain cells whispering waste. Bowels thick with constipated whore. Oh, Thanatos, baby, come give your easy kiss, old steel tongue into my mouth. Taste the sweet oxide, bury me on a bunny rabbit side hill, Groon's pigtailed daughter sprinkling petals on my cindered grave, but nothing grows. I could tell you about Heffalump and Rosenbloom, Jack and Lumpers and all these characters, but I think, you know, it's so plot focused and driven that, you know, you just gotta, I'm just gonna let you, I could say a lot more on it, but I think you'll want to go and try this one out for yourself, because I don't want to ruin it for you. You know what the shtick is, so I think you should just have at it. At risk of spoiling some really funny stuff. Oh my god, the scene with the fucking van in front of the Dairy Queen with the bullwhip. I mean, it's just so weird, dude. It's just so like perverse and depraved. I mean, like just like the entire depravity of like the drugged out 60s is manifested in that scene. It's just so bad. He's just like horrified. It's just so nasty, dude. It's just weird. It's weird. It's like genuinely weird. And it was, right? Like that's the thing. It was really dark and fucking weird. And you get that through this book. Watch out for that one. That's definitely something to look forward to. That's probably like where the Withnell and I thing comes in, because that seemed like it really just got like, you know, kind of like the depravity of the 60s too. But that was, of course, that was over in England. But yeah, kind of like similarities in the vibe. Pynchon described Fariña's book as coming on like the Hallelujah chorus done by 200 kazoo players with a perfect pitch. And also he called it hilarious, chilling, sexy, profound, maniacal, beautiful, and outrageous all at the same time in the introduction. He's right. So what did I dislike about it? Well, I mean, it's like there's the archetype that you can spot of like the college novel young guy, you know. He shows his age sometimes, but he doesn't often enough so that it's brilliant and very, very impressive. Even if it's a mess, even if it's not even cohesive, which it really isn't. It's a mess, but there was a lot of insight and wisdom packed into that comedy and kind of just mindfuck. So you should read it. Well, definitely if you're a fan of any of the authors I've mentioned, Thomas Pynchon, Jack Kerouac, Hunter S. Thompson, and maybe if you like the kind of what Nabokov does with language, you might enjoy this one. Cheers. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I take all of the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show, and I place their names in this mason jar. And for every review I do, I pull out a name, and whoever's name I pull out, they are sent a hard copy of the book, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. So if you would like to help support the show and get in on that, you can click on the link below and donate $5 or more per video on Patreon, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much. For $1 more, you'll get access to the Patreon reviews, the Discord channel, plus the Better Than Friday newsletter I send out every Friday, which is just a list of 5 different things I'm interested in at any given time. Could be books in the pipeline, music, films, articles, changes week to week. If you think we have similar taste, I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. Unfortunately, international shipping is not included. Thank you very much to all the patrons, and best of luck. Cool, here we go. JN. Thank you very much, Jay. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive this rare book, Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up to Me by Richard Fariña, plus a bag of delicious coffee. Hope you enjoy both. Thank you so much. Well, that is all I have for you today. I hope you're doing very well. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Please always remember to bring a book. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. Yeah. Take care.